Hi, guys. Welcome back to another week of Nurses Uncorked. I'm so excited for today's episode. Our guest is Laura Gasparis Vonfrolio. And if you don't know, you're going to be amazed by her. But first, let's do a cocktail of the week. I have a Malibu cocktail. It's pineapple Bay Breeze. Nice and easy because, it's summer and anything with pineapple juice is my absolute favorite. So I've been looking forward to this one. All right, let's get into it. Welcome to Nurses Uncorked, where I pour out the unfiltered truth about healthcare life. I'm your host, Nurse Erica, serving up real talk straight from the front lines to your ears. Each episode, I'm uncorking conversations that matter to nurses everywhere, from the hilarious to the heartbreaking, the inspiring to the infuriating. No filters, just authentic nursing experience shared with a splash of humor and a dose of honesty. So grab your favorite beverage, put your feet up, I know they're tired, and join me as we uncork another episode of Healthcare Reality. Now let's get this shift started. Welcome back. We're coming to you again today from the beautiful Level 9 Studios in Las Vegas, and I am joined remotely by the one and only Laura Gasparis Vonfrolio. Welcome, welcome, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Let me tell everyone about you for the maybe 3 people, new grads out there that may not know who you are. And I want to thank everyone for downloading this episode. If you haven't already, please leave a review, rate, and share with friends. It really does go a long way in helping the podcast out. But Laura Gasparis Vonfrolio, RN, PhD, has been a nurse for over 50 years in critical care nursing and has held CCRN and CEN certifications. She is the president of Education Enterprises and the CEO of Teacher Alert System. She has held positions as a staff nurse, manager, staff development instructor, and tenured professor of nursing. Dr. Gasparis Vonfrolio has published over 30 articles, authored 13 books, including Critical Care Exam Review, Emergency Nursing Exam Review, Nurse Abuse, Impact and Resolution, and my favorite, 25 Stupid Things Nurses Do to Self-Destruct. The Nurses March in Washington, D.C., which over 35,000 nurses attended, and we're going to get into that, has been her greatest accomplishment and the catalyst for nurse legislation for safe nurse-to-patient ratios. Dr. Vonfrolio was also the publisher of Revolution, the Journal of Nurse Empowerment, which won the Folio Magazine Award. For 38 years, her company, Education Enterprises, has been offering educational conferences, nursing products, books, apps, and vacations for nurses. In addition to all this, she is a brilliant businesswoman and the OG queen of the nurse side hustle. Basically, Dr. Vonfrolio is a trailblazer and what I like to call nursing royalty.
Thank you.
You're welcome. When you hear her story, you will be shocked at what she's accomplished throughout her career and inspired by her grit and courage. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Boy, I better be good after that introduction.
It's all true. It's all true. All right. Can I get into some questions?
Sure.
Okay. You left bedside not too long ago, in March of 2020. First of all, can we talk about the impeccable timing of that?
Right.
But you dodged a major bullet. However, this wasn't necessarily a voluntary resignation, was it? Would you mind telling us a little bit about that?
Well, that was during COVID, and we have a log cabin upstate, so my husband's afraid of germs. He's a physician, but he's afraid of germs. So anyway, we went upstate because apparently, there won't be any germs there. So I decided I was working in a hospital up there, and they didn't have any PPE. They ran out of PPE like after a week. So they gave nurses a bandana, a light blue bandana with koala bears on it.
Oh, God.
And that was supposed to protect you from this airborne disease. So I remember from nursing 1 or fundamentals that wasn't going to work. So
yeah.
I went to Home Depot and I purchased an N98 mask, it's called. I think that's when you're sanding or painting or well, whatever. But anyway, it was a pretty big contraption. It had these uh, fans or
Mm-hmm.
filters over here on my mouth. I looked like an ant. But anyway, at least I knew I was going to catch any germs. So when I went into work, they told me that I was unable to wear that would be too scary for the patients.
Oh,
So, I apologize. It'd be scary for the patients, but it'd be even more scary if I was to get um, the coronavirus and then pass
yeah.
it to my husband. And, we're old and we got one foot in the grave. So, I really would prefer wearing it. And they told me I can't. They said, if you wear it, you can't work and you can't work here. So I'm like, all right, I'm out of here. I didn't get report yet. So I just, signed off. But the horrible thing is all the nurses were complaining. They were like, I can't believe it. This is so unfair. They don't have the right PPE, but they stayed. So you know what? You get, on Staten Island, they ran out of PPEs too. So when we came back to Staten Island, there's one hospital in Staten Island that the nurses were reusing their masks for a week and then putting them in a paper bag and
Mm-hmm. Very
you, you,
common.
you shake it with some baking soda and apparently
It's
gets rid of the
awful.
germs. I don't know, some stupid thing they were doing. So I went and I bought N95 masks
Good for you.
and I stood outside the hospital and I gave out 10
Oh my God, I love it.
N95 masks and goggles and little snacks and gowns because they ran out of gowns, so they were
Oh,
wearing
wow.
plastic bags.
Yeah.
So I gave that to all the nurses. But, which just astounds me is I'm little old me, and I was able to get those nurses N95
Oh,
masks,
yeah.
and uh, I don't
Yeah.
know.
Don't even
You
get
know
me
what?
started on that. I was able to procure PPE for my organization too during 2020, 2021, when everyone was saying it was impossible. It wasn't impossible. They
It wasn't
didn't
impossible.
want
They were
to
just
get it.
expensive.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
The N95 masks, they ran me $5.50 a mask.
Yeah.
So I went for almost like $80 per nurse in that hospital.
Well, bless you for doing that and for having the courage
But
to.
I just wanted to show the nurses that, you could do it.
Yeah.
But did they do it? No.
No. Well,
Yeah.
and that's the apathy in nurses, and we'll get into that too. You've spoken previously about being fired from more than one nursing job, which, in my
Mhm.
opinion, we need to normalize talking about because the retaliation is so much more pervasive in nursing than anyone realizes. But you have always fought back, which is why I love you, when most nurses do not. Can you tell us and you just went about fighting back all these years?
Right. Right. I've been fired from quite a few hospitals. Uh, and I say that with pride because I
I
was
have
doing the
too.
right thing as a nurse.
Yeah.
For example, the first hospital I got fired from was U.S. Public Health Hospital back in the 70s before I'm sure anyone listening to this was born. Their mother probably wasn't even born. But anyway, so back in the 70s, in working in a government hospital, human experimentation was allowed without the patient knowing it,
What kind of
believe it or not.
experimentation?
So anyway, I was working in ICU, and there was this doctor, and his name is Dr. Satanori. I'll mention names, too bad. And he was a doctor from Iran, and he made up some kind of a concoction that when he gives it IV to patients on a ventilator, it was supposed to get them off the ventilator faster. It did get them off the ventilator faster, but only because they died. So it
Sorry.
really wasn't a good medicine.
Oh
So
God.
I was taking care of this 95-year-old woman, and her name is Mary Fisher. And she was alert and oriented. Oh, she was on the ball. And she had pneumonia. Why they intubated her, I have no idea. She never really needed to be intubated. So I went over to her and I said, "Hey, Mary, I just want to let you know that Dr. Santanori has this medication that he wants to give the patients. And, I've been seeing the reaction that patients have, and I don't think you need it. All right. So if he comes over, just tell him, you don't want it."
Yeah.
So, and she gave me the thumbs up. And then he went over to her to give her the injection. And she was like, no, 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 no. And I then went over and I said, "Listen, Dr. Sanori, she really doesn't want that." And he said, well, she's an old bag. What does she know? And
Oh,
and then he proceeded to, do
oh
IV push, and I
God.
put my hand on it, and I said, no, you're not giving it. And with that, he took his elbow and he gave me a jab in my stomach. Matter of fact, I let out all my air. I was like,
Oh my
ugh.
gosh.
But then after that, I was a brown belt in both taekwondo and in karate. So
Amazing.
all I did was I chopped him one time. I chopped him one time. He went down. He had to get 17 stitches. But anyway, and then I
Oh,
was escorted off the
I
property.
can't imagine why.
Yeah, I did call the cops, but the police
Good.
department is not allowed on government property. So I got escorted out. But the good thing is 32 nurses followed me. You see,
Wow.
they don't make nurses
Like
like
they
they used
used
to.
to. Yeah.
And these were nurses, and some of them were in the U.S. public health system. I mean, they were, not colonels, but whatever the title they gave them, but they was within the U.S. public health system. And 32 nurses walked out. They had to close down CCU. They had to close down ICU and put everyone in the recovery room. And so then after that, I waited for Mary Fisher to get out of the hospital. I contacted her and I asked her, I said, listen, you want to go to Washington with me? I got to file a complaint. So she said yes. So we took a Greyhound bus
Oh my
down to
God.
Washington. We went into HEW, the building, and we filled out forms, complaint forms against him. And with time, he got investigated. They found that he had forged his license, that he wasn't even a physician, of which I knew from like
What?
day one, I knew couldn't be a
Oh
physician.
my God.
Um, and so that was one time I got fired. And then another time, I mean, I can go on forever, but another time I got fired was from a hospital in Staten Island, because I unionized three of the
Mm,
hospitals on Staten Island.
beautiful.
So they fired me, but that's against the law. You can't fire me for unionizing. So I
Yep.
sued and I got my job back, and I got all my back pay, and I got harassment pay or whatever.
Me
Anyway,
too. I
got
did that once too. And they had to reinstate me and I got a fat check. It was beautiful.
it was beautiful. So I got $150,000
No, I didn't
check.
get that much.
Yeah, 150,000, which, you know, uh, that was in 1984. And so
Wow.
that was like a lot of money, but I
Yeah.
decided to spend it. So I rented out this beautiful catering hall called Shalimar, and I rented it out for a week, and I had them serve breakfast, lunch, dinner to all the nurses and their families, and we celebrated.
Oh my gosh. I love that so
And
much.
the funniest thing is my mother was so mad. She was like, with that, you could have put a down deposit on a house. You could have bought a house. What are you doing? You're always wasting money.
Yeah.
Even the day she died, that was like the last thing out of her mouth is that I used $150,000 to have a party. I'm like, but you know what? It was worth every penny.
Yeah. I'll bet it was.
Yeah.
Um,
So, I've been fired, but yeah, you bounce back. That's it. You use the legal system
It's
and you bounce back.
devastating in the beginning, but it's so empowering to fight back, to lawyer up. There was one time where I didn't fight back and I didn't lawyer up, and to this day I regret it. I
Yes.
and it's not I couldn't afford it. I could never afford it. I was a single mom, but you
Mm.
somehow do it anyway. And I'll
Mm.
tell you years later I still regret not fighting that one
Yes.
time. So, yeah, highly encourage that. Uh
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
Have you ever been reported to the board of nursing for anything?
I have, but it wasn't due to a hospital experience. I was reported because my kids was 16. They're now 22. Because, of course, I have to give
You
birth
had
at,
twins at 53, didn't you? I heard
it's
that.
tumor A and tumor B,
Oh my
ovarian tumor A and ovarian tumor B wound up being baby A, baby B.
god. At 53, that's
Yeah,
amazing. Oh my
yeah, don't please. And I went into menopause at 40. So
god.
you know what it is? I had foster children. I had seven foster kids.
Yeah.
So one of my children was just born, and he was, addicted to, I don't know, crack and heroin or whatever. And he cried 24 hours a day. So I held him 24 hours a day. And they say because of I was nurturing that
It
it did something to my
stimulated.
hormones. It
Yeah.
increased the vesicular stimulating
Mhm.
hormone. And I don't know what happened. All I know is I don't remember having sex, but apparently it must have happened.
Oh my
But
God.
anyway, so my kids were 16. So I bring them to a block party, and they had a horse. Really, it was a moose. It wasn't a horse. It was freaking gigantic. And, they wanted to ride it. I'm like, you can't get on it unless you get a helmet, because they had no helmets. I said, you got to find a helmet, no moose ride. All right. They went into someone's garage, they found helmets, and now we're ready to ride. And I was explaining to them that whenever you deal with a horse, you can never stand behind the horse, even if it's your own horse. All right. Don't stand behind a horse. And as I'm telling them this 10-year-old or 11-year-old girl walks behind the horse and is playing with his tail.
Oh
Next
gosh.
thing I know, the horse kicks the kid. The kid flies like 10 feet in the air, lands on the ground. I go running over. I didn't like the way she looked at all. Um, her father came over. He at the time was an ER doctor and an alcoholic. Anyway, so he came running over and he started lifting her. I'm like, no, don't move her.
Right.
Don't move her. I saw the mechanism of injury.
Yeah.
All right, don't move her. He said, what do you know? So anyway, he picked her up. He put her on the stoop. She's pale. Her lips were white. She's pale.
Yeah.
So I didn't have my phone. So I tell everybody, call an ambulance, call an ambulance. So he's yelling out, we don't need an ambulance. Cut the drama. She'll be okay. I said, no, you don't understand. The horse kicked her in the abdomen. And He's like, she's just like a mother, making a big to do out of nothing. So I'm begging people to call. Um, no, they were afraid to call. They said, no, he said not to call. So I'm like, frick everybody. So I told my kids, I said, keep your helmets on. I got in my Toyota Seneca, like a mommy van, and I picked her up and I put her in the back of on the
Oh, you
floor.
took her to
I put her on the floor in the
Oh my
back
God.
seat, but on the floor. And I it was about 3 minutes away, the hospital. On the way there, I called the ER. I used to per diem there, so I know them. I said, listen, I'm bringing in a 10-year-old kid. I think she has some kind of splenic rupture, beat the bag, get this ready, get that ready. So they were all outside waiting. They immediately brought her up to the OR. She did have a splenic rupture.
Wow.
Matter of fact, the pediatric surgeon said if you would have waited 1 second, she probably would have died because she wasn't even bleeding blood anymore. She was bleeding normal saline. They had to give her 10 units of bank blood. Anyway, she wound up doing just fine. It was a good thing. And it was a great thing. Matter of fact, her and her mother, after 3 weeks, they came to my house, to thank me. And then I had a long talk with the mother. I'm like, he's sounds like a very abusive guy. So if he smacks you around, that's your issue. But once he, jeopardize your daughter's life, I
Mm-hmm.
really think you need to leave him. All right. Um, so I talked her into that. So that was a good thing. But there were nursing administrators at the party. And they thought that my behavior and my actions were just absolutely disgraceful. And I was out of the realm. I don't know what they said, something like
Acting out of your scope.
acting out of the realm of being a nurse or something. I don't
Yeah.
know. So they reported me to the State Board of Nursing. I had to go up to Albany for a hearing.
Wow.
And then it was all settled. It was called, what they call it, informal settlement or something. They just heard the story and then said, see you later.
Yeah.
Uh, because I was really acting more like a good Samaritan
Yeah.
rather than an RN. But,
Wow.
they went out to get me, these nursing administrators, because, I unionized their hospital. So,
I love
they have
it.
a pure hate for me. And the other thing is three of them came to my house to talk to my husband. My husband's a physician. And they came to have a discussion with him that he should put me on medication.
Oh my God.
So my husband's like, you don't know my wife.
Yeah.
You can't tell my wife what to
Can't
do.
tell her.
So yes, that was the only time I was reported
All
to the
right.
State Board of Nursing. Revenge. They wanted revenge.
Yeah, I was also reported once for retaliation and it was dismissed. Yeah, but it's very stressful.
No, yeah, it is because you're dealing with a bunch of constipated people up there. You know, they're not young and lively there.
Yeah. You started as an ADN, an associate degree RN, and now
Hmm.
you're a PhD, which was even more rare back then when you did it.
Yes.
Your education journey is so inspiring. Can you tell us about that journey? And also, did you ever have any issues with using the title of doctor as a nurse with the
Okay.
PhD?
Well, the journey was a lot of fun. I mean, I got my associates from the College of Staten Island, who I'm currently suing. But anyway, and then I went to LIU, and then I went to NYU for my master's. It was all a wonderful experience. And then I went to Delphi, and my education in the PhD program was not too good. It was not too good at all. And the reason being is I had a statistic class, and the teacher of the statistic class, he was a male, and there was 23 of us in the class. And, at that time, there was only 200 nurses with PhDs. There was no such thing
Wow.
as a DNP or an NP.
Okay.
But anyway, so he said to us, if you girls don't wear any underwear under your skirts, you can get a good grade in my class.
What?
This is back in the 80s. Things were a little different than they are now.
What?
So I raised my hand. I'm like, excuse me, can you repeat that again? So he said, yeah, he said, if you don't wear any underwear under your skirt, you can be guaranteed a good grade.
Oh
So
my
I,
God.
I stand up and I look at the class and I'm like, and they're all women except for one guy. I said, does anyone have a problem with what this guy said? And there was only one girl raising her hand who happens to be my best friend now. Uh, so my girlfriend Joan raised her hand and she says, I have a problem. I said, good. I'm going to go see the president of college. Want to come with me? She said, yes. So off we went to see the president of the college. And thank God he was Greek because I'm Greek. So, I go in and the secretary says, you have an appointment. I'm like, yeah, don't worry about it. So then I knock on his door. I'm like, hey, Deganas Apalikala. I'm speaking Greek to him. And I told him what happened. And so the end result is they suspended him for 3 days. All
That's
right.
it.
This big
Wow.
punishment. But I didn't know that he was hooked up with the dean of the nursing program. I didn't know that they were secretly having an affair.
Oh God.
And
Yeah.
and so me and Joan got talked to, and we were told that we would never graduate out of this program. So I
Wow.
said, well, I'm going to stick it through because maybe you'll die. All right. Maybe you'll die. So I stuck
Maybe
it
you'll
through
die.
I stuck it through for 10 years and then she never died. So I finished my courses. I just need my dissertation approved. And you have a committee of 3 people and she was on the committee
Oh
and she would
God.
never approve it.
Oh
So
no.
I had to go somewhere else. I went to LaSalle and I got my doctorate approved and that was it.
Good for you. Did you
Yeah.
ever try to
Now,
use the title?
what?
Did you ever try to use the title doctor or get any
Um,
backlash?
I never used it, but as soon as I got my doctorate, the unit I was working on, they put up balloons and signs, congratulating me. They put
Yeah.
Dr. Gasparis Vonfrolio, yay, hip hip hooray. And then a memo the next day came out to every nursing unit that said, should a nurse receive a PhD or an EDD, that nurse may not be addressed as doctor, in that this would be too confusing um, for our patients.
Mm,
Can you imagine?
yeah.
Should, rather than saying congratulations, no,
Right.
no, should a nurse,
Yeah.
and so that's went that way. But I wasn't using the title anyway.
It's been a hot
The
button
fact
issue
that
lately with
oh yeah, it's an issue
DNPs.
now.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it's a real issue now. Matter of fact, I have a few issues. What's going on? Like NPs, I have a problem with the program. Okay,
Why?
because like I teach in a school, and nurses go right from the baccalaureate program into the NP program, and so they graduate. They never like
There's
David
no
Moynihan.
requirement to do like 2 years prior or anything?
No,
Yeah, that's a
no,
problem. That's a
that's a
problem
problem.
for sure.
So here you are, you graduate with your NP and you're working in a clinic. Someone comes in with congestive heart failure
Right.
and you're prescribing antibiotics because you think it's pneumonia. I got a
Yeah.
problem with that. I
Yeah, I
really
agree.
think NPs should really have at least 5 to 8 years critical care experience.
Yeah, they
Yeah,
definitely need bedside.
that's my 2 cents.
I want to thank Stink Bomb Odor Blocker for being a longtime sponsor and supporter of the Nurses Uncorked podcast. I love promoting products that help nurses and healthcare workers. We go through enough things every day that we can't control, but one thing we can control is giving our nose a break from the foul odors at work. Stink Bomb Odor Blocker is just like a chapstick that fits in your pocket, or you can attach it to your badge, and you just apply a little dab under your nose. No one can see it. And it's a clean and quick secret weapon against bad smells. You can go to stinkbombodorblocker.com and use code uncorked15 for 15% off your purchase. Is it true that you refused to do virtual teaching during COVID and insisted on coming in person?
Yes.
I
I mean,
love that.
I gave my students the option,
Okay.
but I did explain to them, when you're a nurse, you're going to come in contact with all kinds of germs. So, if this is scaring you a little bit, maybe you need to decide whether you want to be a nurse or not. But yeah, we all went to class. We were the
All
only
right.
group that went into the college. But yeah, I'm not going to play that game virtual. It's a
Yeah,
germ.
and
Show
we
up with a
really did a
mask.
disservice to those nurses with all the virtual.
Absolutely.
And I know it was unprecedented. We didn't know, but God, their education was not what they deserved it to be.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
a disservice.
And they showed up because they said we don't learn on Zoom.
Yeah,
So
good for them.
and they wanted the interaction with other humans.
Yeah.
So I didn't get a hard time from anyone
Okay.
except from the college.
What would you say is the most impactful change in nursing practice that you have witnessed throughout your career?
Most impactful. Well, the change has not been for the better in any way, shape, or form. Short staffing has put nurses into a robot mode. There's no time for compassion, no time for empathy, no time for teaching patients, counseling patients, even making them comfortable. There's no time to do that. Nurses are burnt. They're overwhelmed. They're depressed. Their spirit is broken. And when all that happens to you, you really can't be the kind of nurse you really want to be. So I think the change in nursing has really gone downhill. Things were so much different 30, 40, 50 years ago. I mean, we had time to fluff and be with patients and interact with them. It was so different back then. Now everyone's running around like a chicken without a head. You don't have time to do anything. You got to hang this, do this. And it's
Yeah.
all because of poor nurse patient ratios.
Absolutely. Is there anything that you think is better, like maybe scanning of meds or EHRs, or even just something like not having to change the IV site Q3 days anymore? Anything like that has improved, in your opinion?
No, I don't know. I'm an old person, so I hate all that computer crap. I'll take a chart any day. I
I
don't like
do
any
miss
of
my
it.
flow sheet. They were so much faster.
Yeah, everything was right there. You just wrote it all in. Here, you're on your computer. You got to go to this file, then you got to get log out and go over here. And no,
Yeah.
no, it's gone downhill. It's gone downhill. It's so sad because now the hospitals are really profit driven rather than a healthcare system. That's what's really changed.
Yeah. That's 100% true.
You know.
You're a well-known advocate for nurses speaking up. What, in your opinion, is the biggest barrier stopping nurses from advocating for themselves?
Fear.
Yeah, I
They think they're
agree.
going to get fired. It's
100%.
feared. But
100%.
they can't fire a whole unit.
There's power in numbers. I need to get that tattooed on my forehead.
No, it's not going to work. I tried. I put it on mugs. I put it on fanny packs. I put it on T-shirts. I put it in the journal. I put it, I had it on the signs in front of 35,000 nurses.
Yeah.
It really doesn't work. And there's several reasons. One big reason is whenever someone is feeling powerlessness, which nurses feel powerlessness.
Hmm.
So whenever someone does not feel powerful, there's always going to be horizontal violence. And so they fight among themselves.
Yep.
And because they fight among themselves, they're never going to stick together.
And if we're fighting amongst ourselves, we're not fighting admin, and that's what they want.
Exactly. And that's what they want. They want to, they want to give you all kinds of clinical ladders, 1, 2, 3, 4, just to divide you.
Yep.
What
create a hierarchy.
Yeah. The real failure is nursing schools. That's the biggest failure. Absolute failure. They mentally abuse nursing students. They break their spirit.
Yes.
They intimidate them. It's just horrible what I see going on in nursing schools.
That's where it starts. Absolutely.
Yeah, that's where it starts. But what they need to teach nurses is, and not in the associate program, but definitely started in the baccalaureate and definitely in the master's program, is to teach nurses to form corporations. Like all the nurses of the open heart unit should be a corporation and sell that service, market that service back to the hospital. All the nurses of ICU should be a corporation and market that service back to the hospital.
We used to be independent contractors, nurses, way, way, way back, right? We were not employed by the hospital. We were employed privately by patients and their families. And hospitals didn't like that. They wanted to be able
control.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. But nurses need to do that, all the nurses of the open heart unit form a corporation. The hospital's going to have to sign on the contract, because where you're going to get like 30 open heart nurses, what are you going to do? Pull from L&D? And so then you charge the hospital $150 an hour, you pay your nurses $125 an hour, and everybody's happy. And you have conditions in your contract in terms of nurse-patient ratios. If we can't get legislation, federal legislation, throughout the United States, then we have to form corporations and have that in our contract, that the nurse-patient ratio is, 1-to-1 in open heart, 2-to-1 in ICU, etc.
I love that idea.
That's the way to do it. That's what I always tell my students, when I teach in Wagner College, a baccalaureate program, and they're like, I want to go for my master's. I don't know whether to go for an MP, go for here, go for there. I said, listen, get a law degree. You can do it online.
I love that. Yeah.
It takes 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. I mean, my friends did it in a year and a half.
Yeah.
And when you're an attorney and you work in the hospital, people treat you different.
Oh, I bet.
Oh, God. You call up a doctor.
I wish I had done that.
Yeah, and he knows you're an attorney. He comes in his pajamas with a suit jacket, all right? So I think more nurses need to get that degree.
All right, you heard it here first, guys. In lieu of an MSN, maybe consider law school.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
Brilliant. Brilliant advice.
Absolutely. That's the way to get back.
In 1995, you organized the largest U.S. nursing march in Washington, D.C., to raise awareness of unsafe nurse-to-patient staffing ratios and to protect working conditions. Over 35,000 nurses showed up from across the country and shut down Pennsylvania Avenue.
Yes.
You accomplished this in a time before computers, texting, social media.
Right.
And you gave a viral, impassioned speech that still holds up today. One of my favorite parts was, I'm just going to quote you, "We need legal protections for nurses who speak out against dangerous conditions in hospitals, for it is the staff nurse who is the patient advocate and must be protected to do so." That march was a pivotal moment in nursing activism and history. And if you guys haven't seen the YouTube videos, go and watch. It's impressive. It actually makes me tear up.
Yeah, too bad you don't read about it in any nursing journals.
Well, that's why we're doing it now. We're gonna reteach everyone about it.
Yeah,
you were the driving force behind that.
Yes, I organized the whole kit and caboodle.
Yeah, what was the spark that caused you to do it? And how in the hell did you mobilize such a large-scale movement before the era of social media?
Well, the first thing I did is I contacted Congressman Congressman Major Owens, and he's no longer, he passed away, but he was in Brooklyn. And I worked with him to write up legislation, HR 1911, for nurse-patient ratios. Once we had that drafted, now we got to get it passed. And the way you're going to get it passed is by letting everyone know that this needs to be passed. So I figured time to have a march. So since there was no social media, and since many state boards of nursing would not sell me their mailing, their mailing list, what I did is I went from state to state, 2 to 3 states a week until I hit every single state, and I offered free seminars, and I would get anywhere from 200 to 500 nurses at those seminars, and I let them know about the march. And I had flyers for them to bring back to their hospitals.
Oh my God,
now
inspired.
I have their names and
Brilliant.
addresses. Now I have their names and addresses. So I made sure that I sent out a weekly newsletter about the status of the bill.
Through snail mail, like you've mailed it
regular, like a stamp on the envelope.
Yep.
Yeah, no emails, snail mail. And I did that every week. I sent out a newsletter, and it kept them posted about where the bill was. And I also hired a lobbyist firm to push it. Push it as well. It was Monica Worth and Associates, very nice people. But that ran $20,000 a month. So, and I paid this out of my own pocket. Matter of fact, this march ran me over $250,000
back in the 90s.
Yeah, it ran a lot of money. But anyway, so that's how I got everyone to know about the march, because see, no nursing journal like AJN, they wouldn't let me buy a full page ad, even though a full page ad I think was like $15,000. They wouldn't let me.
They wouldn't even let you. Are you serious?
No, because they said that the hospitals, their hospital advertisers, would not like it.
Oh God, I'm not surprised, but oh geez.
And then organizations or associations such as BCEN or AACN would not help me advertise it at all, because they said it was against their philosophy.
Oh.
I was pretty much on our own. And then in one of the newsletters, I said, contact my office if you got a group. And if they got a group, then I hired buses. I even chartered planes to bring everybody in. Matter of fact, I had to rent RFK Stadium to park all the buses. And then I was able to get public transportation to be free for all nurses so that they could come in. Wow. I was also booked every hotel in Washington, D.C. I held those rooms, and thank God they all got full. And the only hurdle I had was I got permits from the state, the Capitol Police. I got from the White House Police, from the Park Police. I got all the permits except from the police department would not give me a permit, and I needed a permit to close down Pennsylvania Avenue. And I couldn't get that permit. So I had my secretary, Stephanie, call the person in charge every day, just begging, please, we'll pay the overtime. All right. What do you need? So she would call him every day. And finally, after about a week, he said to her, what do you look like? So I remember she put her hand over the phone and she says to me, he wants to know what I look like. Why? I said, tell him you're 5'7", you're a blonde, and you're going for a breast reduction, as a joke. But anyway, she tells him this. So now he wants to meet her. All right.
Of course. What a lech.
Now I have to call a brothel, like a whorehouse, whatever, in Washington, D.C., which ran me like $2,000.
And then I hire a prostitute. Did you?
I had to. What am I going to do? I don't know. Blondes, they need a breast reduction, not a horse. But anyway, so then I had to hire a limo, go call someone from the brothel, make sure they're blonde, 5'7", big boobs, and go by the name of Stephanie. And so that happened. And apparently Stephanie, did a very good job, because 2 days later I got Federal Express the permit to close down Pennsylvania Avenue. That's
That
how
is epic.
Washington works. All right.
That is epic. I had no idea. Oh my God.
I know, I know. And other things we arranged was we made sure there were 4 people from each state after the march to meet with the Congress people from their state to talk about the bill. And I had a lot of Congress people on the stage. I mean, it was really going good. And California took it. And of course, right then and there, a year later, they passed
Yep.
the nurse patient ratios.
Yep.
But in other states, it just dwindled. The momentum.
You've got to take that momentum and dedication back to your state level and put in the work like
I
California
know.
did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it just lost its momentum. And I thought I educated enough, with the newsletter on where to go, how to do it.
Yeah.
But it was a start. At least California has nurse patient ratios. All
Well,
right.
and we have all the data now from California for over 20 years. So it's
Right.
very valuable. But
Right.
how did
Right.
it feel standing in front of the Capitol with tens of thousands of nurses around you? I can't even imagine how amazing that must have been. How did that impact you?
Well, at the time, I was so excited. I said, "Thank God, there's hope." I was so excited, but then as time went on, and we came back from the march, and time went on, and I didn't see any progression anywhere. Then it was just a fleeting moment of hopefulness. Um, but at least I tried. I gave it a shot.
Oh,
You know?
you absolutely pulled off the unimaginable. I can't. Ugh, all the credit goes to you for getting that many nurses involved.
I know, but
Is
I made a business mistake. As a businesswoman, I really messed up on that because I should have like got vendors on every corner selling like
mm.
a hot dog and water, because the walk from the Capitol to the White House is almost a mile and a half.
Mhm.
And Pennsylvania Avenue was closed down that whole way. So, I mean, I could have got, cases of water from Costco. And even if I sold them for $1, I'd make some kind of a profit to make some of the money back, because I had to get porta sands, I had to get
Yeah.
the stage, I had to get the podium, I had to get speaker systems. I mean, I had to rent
Cost you.
RFK Stadium, charter buses. I mean, it ran a lot of money. So I should have
Mm.
sold hot dogs and water on like every corner, but I didn't think of it.
That's okay. This week's Enema of the Week award is brought to you by Happy Bum Co. I love when you guys share your experiences with me about using the Happy Bum Co products. So many of you have told me it helps support your energy levels, and you've finally been able to stop taking chemical laxatives, which is amazing. People are calling the Happy Bum Home Enema the ultimate biohacking detox and wellness tool. One person even said that it gave her a sense of rejuvenation and vitality. And of course, the feedback I hear most often is from people saying they no longer suffer from lifelong constipation and bloating, which is awesome. So if you've been thinking about it, you should go check it out at happybumco.com, code Nurses Uncorked for 15% off your first bundle. And this week's Enema of the Week award goes to Mary Lund, the risk manager at the hospital Charles Cullen worked at, who allegedly knew he was murdering patients and actively covered it up, allowing him to continue working and harming patients. We discussed all this in last week's episode with Amy Lochran, the good nurse. It's also detailed in the Netflix documentary. I still can't get over the fact that she was promoted in the wake of this. There is a special place in hell for risk managers that knowingly allow for dangerous nurses to actively continue harming patients just to protect the hospital. That's pure evil. So this week's Enema of the Week award goes to Mary Lund. Okay. Is it true that ANA did not support the march until
Not
they
at
saw
all.
how many nurses showed up, and then they suddenly appeared with a banner?
They did. They didn't support it at all. They didn't talk about it. They didn't write about it. They didn't support it. But uh, uh, Virginia Betts was the president at the time. And a rumor had it they were in contact with all the hotels in Washington, D.C., and found out that everything was all booked up. And
Oh,
then RFK Stadium was
really?
booked, and they got a little nervous, so they were there. And then once they saw the crowd, they attempted to go in. When I was leading the march, they attempted to go right in front of me with a big ANA
No, they didn't.
right in front. But I had hired security guards, like these big guys, these big black guys, and their neck went from the ears to the shoulders. I mean, they were like 6'7", 6'8". I mean, they were
Amazing.
scary looking. They were good, and they just picked those little girls up and put them off on the curb there and said, "Get out of here." And so they left. But they were ready to go
They were
right in
trying to
front.
take credit for it and
They were
get,
trying to take the whole credit for it.
oh God, I wish I was surprised. Those rat
Oh my
bastards.
God. But anyway, my boys took care of them. Thank God.
How did your hospital administration or nursing leadership respond to your involvement in that march? I mean, did you face retaliation or backlash?
No, they were afraid of me. No, they weren't. They were afraid of me. You know why? Because I was like on Nightline with Ted Koppel. I got interviewed on TV by Ed Bradley. I was on Good Morning America with Charlie Gibson. I mean, I was doing a lot of TV appearances.
Right.
And I think they were a little nervous that if they gave me a hard time, I would open my mouth on TV and then they would look bad
Beautiful.
and stuff. So, yeah, no, they
Beautiful.
were a little afraid of me at the time.
I love that so much.
They were a little
Uh,
frightened
I think
with
it's
this
safe
loose
it's
group.
safe to say that most people felt the 2022 National Nurses March lacked unity and purpose. How did it feel to watch a movement with so much potential fall short, especially after your own success in organizing the march in 95?
Yeah, it was disappointing. It really set us back, but I don't fault the two girls. The two girls were Veronica Marshall and Ashley Hughes.
Mhm.
These are the two ladies who started the whole thing.
Mhm.
And they started with a Facebook page, and they really developed a large following and a good momentum. So they were doing right. Now, as I was telling them, what they really need to do is you have to have legislation in place. You can't go, you know, banging on a drum if you have nothing
You
to
need an
fight for.
actionable event. Yeah, what are we there
Right.
for? What are we supporting?
Exactly. Now, and the other thing is they had too many demands. Like they wanted nurse patient ratios, they wanted better salaries, they
Yes.
wanted no violence against nurses, no racism. Your
Yeah,
list was too long. You need one thing, you need legislation, and then you go.
I
But
agree.
they didn't have that, and that's one problem. The other problem is um, they were really off to a good start. I mean, when you go to their Facebook page, I don't know if they
Oh,
have it
they
anymore.
got a ton of followers, like, overnight. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They were going to have a really great march. So then it became two groups. And that's where the problem was. Who was meeting here, who was meeting here. And, people saying, well, is it the Universal Nurses March? Is it the National Nurses March? And then
Yeah.
it got
Change
all
the name,
messed up.
everybody wanted
And
credit.
yeah, so that was the end of that. But
Ye
that was undermined. It was totally undermined by one person.
Well, you were kind of consulted unofficially in the planning of the 2022 National Nurses
Mhm.
March. So from what you observed, was the failure more about, like, poor organization and planning, or was it a deeper issue of power struggles between the key players that may not have been involved for the right reasons? Because for those that don't know, it ended up being two separate marches,
Right,
which I covered in a couple previous episodes of the
right,
podcast.
right.
Yeah.
There was two separate groups. Right.
Yeah.
I mean, they really should have got together.
Yeah, it was
You know?
embarrassing that it was two separate marches
Right.
because no one took us seriously.
Again, you really need legislation before you start banging your drum. And then the divide, it really was typical for nurses to fight among themselves.
There were a handful of other people involved that were extremely problematic and toxic.
Oh,
Yes.
really?
Oh,
Oh,
yes. Oh, we'll
oh, gee.
talk. We'll talk.
Oh. Okay. I'm
Uh,
sure I'm sure there was. I
yeah.
I didn't have a problem. You know why I didn't have a problem? I did the whole thing myself.
Yeah,
That's
you
it. I
did.
didn't deal with nobody.
That's right.
That's it. Sometimes when you do something big, you got to just do it by yourself.
Yeah. With up to 40% of new nurses leaving the profession their first year, what advice do you have for nursing students and new grad nurses?
Well, I tell my students under no condition, I don't care if you're feeding your family, you can find another job doing something else.
That's
Under
right.
no condition do you stay in an unhealthy environment, one that physically abuses you, emotionally toxic. You don't stay. You leave.
But
You
they
move
do.
on, but remember to take people with you.
Mm.
I just had a student call me up. She says, Professor Vonfrolio, I don't know what to do. I'm at, she was at, she, well, she's leaving. She was at NYU, which is supposed to be the mecca of healthcare, but she was telling me what's going on. And I'm like, you leave. She said, oh, but how's it going to look on my resume that I only worked here for 6 weeks? I'm like, don't put it on your
Yeah,
resume.
leave it off. Yeah.
Leave it off. And when they ask you what you did for 6 weeks, tell them you toured Europe because you wanted to evaluate the healthcare system in other countries.
Yeah.
That's it.
Get creative. Yeah.
Get creative, but yes, leave. Don't waste your time with anything toxic.
When I left a very toxic hospital that I was at for almost 10 years that had been trying to get rid of me, like five or six nurses left and followed me to my new position. Yeah, a couple immediately, and then several more in the next couple of months came. And I didn't even ask them to, but to me, that felt so validating.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's what has to happen, without a doubt. The students have to stick together. My students, last semester when I taught, I was left off the pinning list because apparently I irritate some professors,
No.
No, I do. I do. When the students come into my classroom, I play music. I insist that everybody dances for a little while. I also feed my students because they have a class from 8 a.m. to 12. They're sitting in psych. And then they have my class from 12:20 to 4:30. So, I mean, first of all, how do you expect anyone to learn sitting in class for 8 hours? All right.
Yeah.
So, no one in education that's currently teaching, not no one, but we're really lacking in curriculum design. All right. So I feed them, right? I feed them. And this, got everybody's panties in a wad. And then I've been teaching for a long time. I was a tenured professor and teaching in colleges for over 20 years. And I can tell you that no one has failed my class. I will not fail you. You cannot fail. I won't let you fail. All right. If I see, because I give homework, I give a lot of homework, but if I see that you might be floundering or not putting the time in or don't know how to study, then we're tutoring. I tutor anywhere from 12 to 20 hours a week. And I'll tutor on Zoom, not to inconvenience anybody. It could be if you work, it could be at 12 midnight to 1 o'clock in the morning, whatever you want. But you will not fail my class. All right. In any way, shape, or form. Now, if you don't want to put the time in, then you'll have to drop it.
Yeah.
All right. But if you want to be a nurse and you want to put this time into studying, I'll study with you. I'll study. I'll show you how to study. I'll show you how to learn. So I've never failed a student ever. And so again, this got a lot of teachers their panties in a wad because they were failing 60% of their students out of the program in order to maintain a good pass rate on the NCLEX.
Oh, yeah. That's happening so many places now. It's so corrupt. It's terrible. Yeah. They're withholding their what is it, the ATT, and even though they've passed, they've got the degree. Yes. Oh, it's terrible.
Yeah. Terrible the way they treat them. They break students' spirits
before they even start. Yeah.
It's horrible. I mean, the first day of class, what do nursing teachers say? Look around you, because only half of you are going to pass. Well, I haven't heard of such a thing.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I never failed a student. I would be devastated if one of my students failed. Because to me,
you care.
I'm not doing my job.
Right.
So it's just horrible. Their test construction is terrible. You know what it is? They have DNPs.
Mm-hmm.
All right, that are teaching in nursing schools. Mm-hmm. And I try to explain to the powers that may be that a DNP is different than a PhD.
Mm-hmm.
A DNP, they learn how to do vaginal examinations. They learn how to do testing for the prostate gland. They listen to lungs. Okay, blah, blah, blah. As a PhD, I take 2 years of psychometrics, which is test construction and evaluation. I take a whole year on curriculum development. All right. So just because you have these doctorates in your program, if you got a DNP, as far as I'm concerned, you don't have the education for test construction. You don't have the education for curriculum design. And now we're really going downhill in terms of the nursing profession, their education.
Yeah. You've been a leader in continuing education for quite a long time now. How do you see nursing education evolving in the next decade? Do you think there's hope?
Oh, you mean nursing education for certification or nursing education in the schools?
Let's say both, either or.
Well, for the schools, it's downhill, absolutely downhill.
You don't see it changing.
A lot of things need to change. For example, nursing schools, there's a lack of clinical experience. All right.
Yes,
schools
I
need to
agree.
work closely with hospitals. Hospitals need to work with schools. And when they go to clinic, it can't be 8 students or 10 students gathering around a bed watching someone put a Foley in. It has to be a one-to-one.
Yeah.
Every student has to be hooked up to a clinical nurse and work with that nurse and learn things on the job. All right. So that doesn't happen anymore. Now they have all these fancy labs and stuff. And so you have these
Sim
plastic
labs.
dolls and you're doing this shit with plastic dolls. Cut that shit
It's
out.
not the same.
It has to be a one-to-one in the hospital setting. And then the nursing teachers, they really need to get people with EDDs or PhDs. I'm sorry. DNP is a great person to teach health assessment,
Mm-hmm.
physical assessment. But in terms of curriculum design and test construction, no.
Yeah, that's an
So
interesting point.
school, I think it's going downhill. And then for certifications, that's pretty much on the downhill now because the nurse's attitude is,
They
why
don't
should
pay
I
me
do
more.
this?
Why should I
Yeah,
do it?
exactly. Why should I do
Yeah.
it? I mean, you do have people going for their CCRN
Mm-hmm.
only because they want to be CRNAs
Right.
and make 300,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
a big proponent of getting certifications. I hold 4 national certifications. And I will hire an ADN nurse with a certification in that specialty before sometimes I'll hire someone with a higher degree because
Oh,
that
yeah.
shows me you really are
Right.
a specialist in that area.
Right.
It does go so far. And yes, they don't pay for it more often than not. And that's terrible. They should. The hospitals should pay for the testing fees and the renewal fees and all the things. But I mean, it really does behoove you to become certified in your
Yeah, that
specialty.
shouldn't hold you back. What
Yeah.
they should do, if you do pay for it on your own, they then should give you some kind of a stipend or an
Yes,
increase in salary. Because
absolutely.
now you're more competent and there'll be decrease in complications. They need to reward you.
Yeah. Well, you've helped thousands and thousands of nurses prepare for the CEN and CCRN certification exams with your famous reviews. What are the common learning barriers that you see, or are there?
Lack of confidence. That's the only barrier. They are so downtrodden and their spirit is broken that they have no confidence.
Mm,
And that's the only barrier I see. Just lack of confidence.
yeah.
And then it starts in nursing school.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
I don't know. I build up my students. My students walk tall. They walk high.
I love it.
And the greatest gift I can have as a teacher is when my students write on their evaluations, I want to grow up to be just like her.
Oh,
And then I say to myself, you know what? I did it.
that's amazing. Yeah.
Because I have confidence or balls, whatever you want to
I
say.
think both.
I have both. But it's lack of confidence that people fail.
Yeah.
Really, that's it.
When people look back at your contributions to nursing, what do you hope they say about your impact, or what do you want your legacy to be?
I want people to say that I was an advocate for nurses, that I was a dedicated teacher, and that I was the nurse's nurse.
I love it.
Yeah, that's what I would like.
Well,
But
I
hopefully I
wish.
don't go anywhere too fast. But anyway, you never know at my age.
Well, I hope that this podcast reaches the right people and they are inspired by your story because, you and I have talked and the apathy in nursing is pervasive and it's such a problem and it's really holding the profession back as a whole. And so you are
Right.
an inspiration to simply have courage to do the right thing, regardless of the possible ramifications. Like you can make that decision to do the hard thing. You can. Yeah.
Right. But since I'm old and you're very, very young,
Oh, no, I'm not.
think because yes, you are. I have this brainstorm that I think you should run with it.
I
think
know.
you
We
should
need to
start
talk about that some
I think you need
more.
to start an organization called the American Nurses Organization for especially bedside nurses, and this could start mobilizing people
Yeah.
because we really don't have we don't have anyone that speaks our voice.
Yeah.
Nobody speaks our voice.
I'm trying. Yeah. We're
So
going to talk more about that.
I already sent you the logo.
I know you did.
I should be pushing.
I love it.
I already got the
domain.
Name. I already got the domain for you too.
So good.
Just let me know. I got 1-800 numbers. I got an office. I have staff. I have everything. Just let me know. Start put the feelers out. See if there's any nurses that want a brand new organization that's going to stand up for you. We'll be very present in Washington. And
what do you guys think, listeners out there? What do you think about that? Let me know. Email. Right. Let me know.
I'll plan a dinner date with Trump and we'll see if we can get something. I'm a New Yorker. Anyway, so we'll see if we can get something on the board here.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being my guest today and enlightening the nurses everywhere and being an inspiration. I appreciate you so much. And I also want to be you when I grow up.
All right, good. But I'll tell you how to do it. It's easy. Just bust chops. That's it. That's all you have to do. But you're doing a great job. You're really getting the nurses' wheels turning. You're speaking out. You're telling nurses things they think, but they're afraid to say.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you're doing a great job.
Thank you.
There's just one of you, but that's all right. You can still conquer. You could conquer the world, just one person.
Thank you so
nursing,
much.
All right. Thank you for what you do. Too bad I'm not in Las Vegas. We go out drinking.
I know. We gotta meet up one of these days and put our heads together.
Cooler.
Yeah. You're gonna give it a few months.
Yeah.
All right. Until next time on the next Nurses Uncorked.